Well, I'm Alan Dale from Gale Force Friends. It's fantastic to be here at the Atlantic Canadian Aerospace and Defence Association at their Maritime Arctic Safety and Security Conference right here in beautiful St. John's, Newfoundland. Thank you to our good friends at the Ship Stop Here initiative for kicking this conversation off. They understand the importance that all conversations matter. Well, my next guest, you've been on the show many times, Peter MacKay, and I want to tell you, we always appreciate your perspective. The world is a different place since we last spoke, and if I wouldn't mind picking your brain a little bit on sort of where you see Canada positioned at the moment.
Well, Alan, that's a big question.
Yeah,
firstly,
huge.
thank you once again to you and Gale Force Winds for having me on. Interesting discussion happening here in St. John's,
Yeah.
and it partly answers your question, and that is we are seeing a recognition, long overdue, that Canada cannot stand still. We've been sort of limping along, and I think these investments that have been promised by the current Prime Minister and government are a recognition of this urgency. And whether it's, the invasion of Ukraine, what's happening in the South China Sea and the threats to Taiwan, obviously the turmoil in the Middle East, this is not some far-off place that isn't impacting Canadians. These threats are real and more proximate because of technology, more proximate because of the ability of hypersonic missiles and various other very ominous threats that are out there. And the Canadian forces, first and foremost, are tasked with responding and being ready. And we need to resource them, and we need to catch up. And so committing to 2% of GDP spending quickly, and then getting to 5%, making investments in equipment and infrastructure and people, first and foremost, has to be one of the foremost priorities of government. And so put me in the category of cautiously optimistic. We've seen and heard a lot. Budget is the big missing piece of that puzzle. And then the action over rhetoric. As Elvis would say, a little less conversation, a little more action.
Right. Now, you would have been, in the inner workings of this many times in your career. Tell me, is it doable? Are we able to do this?
Alan, that is the quintessential question. I want to say yes, it depends on certain things. It's a political answer. But making the announcement, even having the budget, foretells being able to push these projects and procurement through a fine mesh that is the Canadian Public Service. And this is not to dump on bureaucrats, but it's to say we need to kind of break down some of the silos, some of the hurdles, some of the duplication, and get these projects through. I would say the same of some of these big natural resource projects and Canada building projects. And, there's a correlation because without natural resource development tomorrow, whether it's pipelines, whether it's getting liquefied natural gas to the world market, or the critical minerals that we know exist in this country, and, our agriculture and other products, including tech products that people are talking about here, unless we do that, we can't pay the bill.
Right. Yeah.
And, that has been an issue for a long time, is being able to keep up with our international and North American Canadian commitments and obligations, let's call them.
I know that the military is near and dear to your heart. You were defense minister, and I know that it means a lot to you. Where do you see the priority should be for defense spending? Well, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think a lot of talk about equipment here. Understandably, it's sort of a trade type of gathering.
Yeah.
But, increase in budget means increased pay. It means, obviously, recruitment and retention, getting people to a place where they want to be part of the Canadian Forces. And I think many do. People in this country are patriotic. They care. We saw that during Afghanistan with Red Ribbon campaigns and Highway of Heroes, and a recognition of the absolute incredible contribution that are made by men and women in uniform and their families, I'm quick to add. So those kind of homegrown investments, where they live, where they train, and then, of course, the equipment that they use. We want them to be able to, perform their missions safely and come home to their families. These are all big-ticket items. And some of the early maneuvering are, kind of moving some numbers around, investing locally, bringing the Coast Guard in under the Canadian Forces banner. All good things. I'm all for it. But then, to come back to the question about where should the money go? We need an over-the-horizon radar system, early warning. The Golden Dome project seems a bridge too far, but something that is going to allow us to have first strike at an incoming missile. We need submarines. We need to complete, hopefully at an accelerated pace, the National Shipbuilding Procurement Strategy, a whole new fleet of vessels for the Royal Canadian Navy. We need fighter aircraft.
Right.
We need autonomous vehicles, drones, great companies like Kraken here for subsea autonomous vessels and capabilities. And all of this comes together in a system of systems that I can't pretend to understand in technical terms, but we have great minds in the forces and in the support to make these things happen. And it needs to be staged and prioritized, as you say. But I would say people first.
Right. You're a proud Atlantic Canadian. Talk to me about where Atlantic Canada finds itself in the middle of all of this.
Yeah, great question, Alan. We're well situate to be, I'm not going to say primary beneficiaries, but major beneficiaries. Our proximity to the Arctic and to Europe. You know, geography is in our benefit, as are the people and the traditions of service in Atlantic Canada. And we have this beating heart of technology here. A lot of young people want to stay and they want to have their careers here. And whether that's in the forces or in support of the forces, I think that's to our benefit as well. We have to work, I think, a little more collaboratively as a region. You know, we shouldn't be competing with each other sometimes as much as we do. And we see provincial premiers and the Prime Minister talking about breaking down those trade barriers. And, you know, frankly, Atlantic Canada's time has come. It's our turn to be at the big table, to be part of solutions that the country needs, that the Canadian forces need. I like our chances. I like where we are, and I like what I'm seeing, you know, at this conference. ACADA is doing a great job, you know, pushing forward Atlantic Canada's interest. But Cove, the launch site that you have here in St. John's, or just outside the city, and these infrastructure connective tissues that are coming together under things like the Diana, the Defense Innovation Accelerator, that opportunity is massive if we can harness it and use it to our advantage.
I love your optimism, I really do, and really appreciate your lens. You're one of the most important voices right now in the room as we enter into this unprecedented time on military spending and things like that. So we appreciate this. And sometimes when I get a guy like you on and we're talking at such a level, I like to bring it down a little bit. Peter, you got a wonderful little family. How are they doing? I know you're busy with that too.
Alan, well, that's for everyone. The most important thing, and thank you for your kind words. My kids are growing up fast, like every family, and they're active, they're involved in sports, they're doing well in school, so I'm truly blessed, and that has more to do with the mom, quite frankly. I do my level best, but it's you know, it's a blessing. And you find the right person, and you bring these little people into the world and try to set them up for success. And I don't know, I mean, if I had my wish, and it's not up to me, obviously, it's up to these kids when they get older, I would love to see them stay, first and foremost, and I would love to see them involved in service to their community, whatever that may look like. And I'd like to think that Atlantic Canada, you know, has a nurturing environment that gives young people a really unique opportunity where people care about each other. We've got a really great corner of Canada, and we need to preserve some of that, you know, that connective tissue that people feel to this region.
Well, service runs deep in your family. It sure does. We appreciate you being on and appreciate everything you're doing for Canada. Thank you.
Thank you. Really appreciate it, Al. Thanks. Sure.